rules the seas, rules the world. The genesis of the colossal empire that the colonial powers established in the 18th and 19th centuries evolved on this maxim. It was another quarter of a century later, when the Second World War began, that the aircraft carrier fast replaced the battleship as the focal piece of the maritime chessboard at sea. Welcome aboard the mighty, magnificent, majestic Vikrant, the Indian Navy's first aircraft carrier. So tranquil, so silent, so still. Her complement of Seahawk jet fighters, baptized the White Tigers, engaged hostile aircraft and conducted strikes against an enemy, while the Elysee anti-submarine aircraft, christened the Cobras, kept the enemy submarines at bay. These two squadrons were subsequently complemented by the Alouettes, also known as the Angels. Her ultimate tryst with destiny, her moment of eternal glory that shall forever live in the annals of our naval history, was in the month of December 1971, during the Indo-Pak War. In the evening of 3rd December 1971, Pakistan launched an unprecedented and unprovoked attack on the airfields of India.
Pakistan launched a full-scale war against us. The Pakistan Air Force suddenly struck at our airfields in Amritsar, Pathankot, Srinagar, Avantipur, Uttarlai, Jodhpur, Ambala and Agra. भारत केवल भूमि, पहाड़ और नदी नहीं, भारत केवल 6 लाख गांव व नगर नहीं, भारत उसकी 55 करोड़ संतान ही नहीं, भारत एक भावना है. Today, the war in Bangladesh has become a war on India.
In keeping with the highest traditions of our glorious motherland, our armed forces responded to the nation's call with valor, commitment, and courage. The onerous task was clearly defined in the inspirational words of the then Chief of the Naval Staff, Admiral S.M. Nanda, whose signal to the Navy read, "Pakistan has committed an unprovoked aggression against us, and our defense forces have been ordered to meet this challenge with full courage and determination. My objective is to search and destroy Pakistani warships, and along with sister services, to inflict maximum damage on the enemy war machines. No sacrifice should be too much for us. Let us write a new chapter in the history of our services." The commanders of the Eastern and Western fleets, Vice Admiral N. Krishnan and Vice Admiral Surendranath Kohli, were ordered to undertake bold, dashing and spirited forays to annihilate enemy units and harbor installations. INS Vikrant, operating off the coast of the Andaman and Nicobar Islands with Indian naval ships Brahmaputra and Bias in company, was redeployed towards Chittagong. On the morning of the 4th of December, the initial strike was launched at Cox's Bazar from a range of 60 nautical miles. The very same evening, a strike was again carried out on Chittagong Harbour. The squadron of 8 Seahawks found their mark, targeting enemy installations at Cox's Bazar and Chittagong. Subsequent strikes were launched at Khulna and Mongla on the 5th and 6th of December, damaging Pakistani ports, airfields, and ordnance and fuel dumps. Chittagong Harbour, the airfield, and the approaches to Chittagong were completely devastated. There were ships that had capsized. There were half-sunk ships by the quayside. The airfield had multiple craters, and no vessel could even contemplate approaching the harbor. The PTI message bears ample testimony to the success of these attacks. Chittagong Harbor ablaze as ships and aircraft of the Eastern Naval Fleet bombed and rocketed. Not a single vessel can hereafter be put to sea from Chittagong. INS Vikrant, with minimal resources from the Eastern Fleet, had successfully carried out the unprecedented task of enforcing total blockade within 48 hours and continued to control the area for the entire duration of the war. The enemy spirit and morale was shattered by the incessant strikes and bombings, which continued till the 10th of December. On the 11th of December, a message from the Commodore Chittagong to the flag officer commanding East Pakistan Navy was intercepted, indicating that a desperate enemy was planning to get away by camouflaged merchant ships. To counter this developing situation, Vikrant steamed north, and 29 Seahawk strikes armed with 500-pound bombs and rockets were launched against shipping and targets around Chittagong. The results of the day's work were summed up in a signal from the Eastern Fleet Commander to the Commander-in-Chief. Be pleased to report that at the end of 24 hours of continuous sorties involving constant Alizé recce and bombing and Seahawk strikes, Cox's Bazar and Chittagong have been rendered inoperative. There is no merchant ship of any size in Chittagong Harbor or approaches which has not been struck and incapacitated. This operation undoubtedly highlighted the decisive impact of an aircraft carrier in naval operations. The enemy submarine PNS Ghazi, deployed to sink Vikrant, found a watery grave at the bottom of the sea off Vishakhapatnam Harbor after defensive anti-submarine action by Indian naval ships Rajput and Akshay. Vikrant remained forever invincible. Meanwhile, the western seaboard was witness to one of the most audacious and daring attacks in the history of naval warfare. It was here that the bold plan to attack Karachi was conceptualized and implemented. The plan required ingenuity, perfect timing, and absolute emphasis on surprise. The ships chosen for this mission were the sleek and stealthy Osa-class missile boats of the 25th Missile Vessel Squadron. What followed thereafter became a glorious chapter in the history of the Indian Navy. 2000 hours, the 3rd of December 1971. Operation Trident. In the darkness of the night, the ship silently crept up, hugging the Saurashtra coast, before breaking out seaward into perilous waters. Their objective, the enemy's citadel, Karachi. On detecting a radar contact a little over 40 miles from Karachi, Nirghat engaged the Pakistani destroyer, Khyber. Khyber went down at 23:20 hours, stern first, listing heavily to port. Nipat, meanwhile, fired a missile each at 2 contacts detected on her radar at 25 miles. These were the destroyer Shah Jahan and the merchantman Venus Challenger. About 40 miles from Karachi, Nipat fired another missile in the direction of the harbor entrance. The missile set the fuel tanks of the harbor ablaze. A massive fire that took 4 days to extinguish. Simultaneously, Veer scored a direct hit on the minesweeper Muhafiz that disintegrated and sank. The Chief of Naval Staff was elated. Operation Trident successful. Karachi ablaze. I am proud of you. 2300 hours, the 8th of December, 1971. Operation Python. Barely had Pakistan had the time to get over the devastation of Operation Trident when the missile boats struck again, this time from the west. Missiles struck ships in harbor, sinking merchant vessel Harmathan and damaging 2 other ships. Thrishul's cryptic signal summed up the feelings of the Indians. This is the best Diwali we have seen. These swift operations on the western and eastern seaboard had a dramatic effect. Blockade was enforced and total sea control imposed in the Arabian Sea and the Bay of Bengal. Victory finally came when General A.A.K. Niazi capitulated on the Eastern Front, and the Indian armed forces triumphed. In a moment of crisis, the Indian Navy had acquitted herself with honor. The President of India decorated several officers and sailors in recognition of their gallantry and dedicated selfless service to the nation. Vikrant became the most decorated unit in the war. 2 Mahavir Chakras, 8 Veer Chakras, and scores of Nausena medals were awarded to the gallant men of Vikrant. The 4th of December thereafter is celebrated each year as Navy Day, in remembrance of the glorious exploits and successes of the Navy during the 1971 war.